I don't think I have ever had a camera set up quite like this. You guys are in the most precarious situation right now. You are on top of a box and a stack of books that are at an angle so that my mini tripod can cope, and I also have a ring light kind of leaning on the desk because I basically couldn't be bothered to do a proper setup today because I am exhausted, but I really wanted to record a couple of videos, so I have done it in the laziest way possible. I've brushed my hair, so there's that, but I'm literally in my trackers and I haven't even had a coffee yet. While I wait for this to cool down, I thought I would get started on my October new releases video. I do these videos every single month, or at least I try to. I use these as a way to kind of keep track of my own most anticipated releases, but also to tell you guys what's coming out in the near future. This isn't an exhaustive list, obviously. I do have a spreadsheet for that and I'm thinking about sharing it with everyone, but it's a lot of work to keep it up. So I'm thinking maybe I could do a Patreon sort of thing just for that and for longer new releases videos, but I'm still like trying to work it out because obviously Booktube isn't my full-time job. I do this as a hobby, so I'm trying to figure out if I've got time in my spare time outside of work to do that kind of thing. So that's kind of on the back burner. I don't really know why I'm telling you this. I'm just kind of oversharing because I've not had a coffee yet. I'm not thinking straight. So today I have over 30 new releases for October to share with you. I think publishers are getting their new releases out before Thanksgiving, before Black Friday and before Christmas so that people can start doing their gift shopping, and it shows. There's so much coming out. I am so excited and I wanted to share them all with you. There's a mixture of fantasy, sci-fi, horror, thrillers, contemporary as usual. I'm not really picky about the genres that I read, so I figure let's get into it. First book I wanted to share is what I think is the traditionally published version or edition of Blood Over Brighthaven by M.L. Wang. So the self-pub version came out last year. Now this one has appeared and I'm fairly sure this must be the traditionally published version. So the synopsis says that magic has made the city of Tyran an industrial utopia, but magic has a cost and the collectors have come calling. The main character, Skyona, is an orphan and she feels like she has always had more to prove than her fellow students. She's been studying magic for 20 years and then she finds that her challenges have just begun. There's something about a nomadic hunter and a fractious relationship, a mage and an outsider. So I think this one sounds really good. I felt kind of meh about the last M.L. Wang book that I read. I know that's kind of like sacrilege to say, but I didn't love it. So I'm intrigued enough by this one to give it another go. I didn't hate the previous book that I read. I just gave it like 2.5, 3 stars. It wasn't as great as I was expecting, unfortunately. But I'm hoping this one will be. And then this next one, I am trying to figure out what's going on because it seems as though this is another self-published book which is being published traditionally, and that is The Bridge Kingdom. So I cannot find a pre-order link for this cover, but it does say on Goodreads that this is being published by Del Rey, so I'm a bit confused, but I'm fairly sure that's what's happening, and I adore this cover. So if I do pick up this book, it will be this edition. It's absolutely stunning. I've heard lots about Danielle L. Jensen. She's got a very tricky name to say, but I don't actually know what this series is about, so let's take a look. Warrior princess trained in isolation. Lara is driven by 2 certainties. The first is that the King Arryn of the Bridge Kingdom is her enemy, and the second is that she'll be the one to bring him to his knees. Okay, sold. That sounds amazing. I'm gonna get it. I'm going to read this one. I think it's the first in a fantasy romance series. It says it's for fans of From Blood and Ash and Akatar, neither of which I am a fan of, but I'm always willing to try some fantasy romance, I think. So yeah, I'm gonna give this one a go, especially with this new cover. I think it's absolutely beautiful. I know I said that already. Let me just click and see if the rest of the series has new covers. It does. Oh, wow. Okay, so book 3, I'll put the cover up here. That's absolutely beautiful. So yeah, I will be buying these. It looks like the publisher is releasing them once a month. Okay, anyway, moving on. Another fantasy book that I've put on this list is Blood of the Old Kings. This is a translated copy. The original came out quite a few years ago now, and now this translation is being released by Tor. So this is like an epic fantasy adventure that follows 3 strangers who are on a journey through the Empire, so it's kind of like a travelling story. It says that the Empire uses the power of dead wizards to conquer and subdue, powered by the corpses of sorcerers. So that sounds really good to me. Lauren is desperate for revenge after the Empire killed her family, so much so that the swordswoman climbs the volcano where the legends say an ancient dragon slumbers and leaps in. I'm definitely here for this. It doesn't have the highest rating, but I wonder if that's the English version or is that for all of them? The reviews on my page are all quite good. Someone DNF'd it, and that's maybe the reason why the rating is lower, because there aren't too many ratings yet. but I do want to read this one. Another dragon book is The Last Dragon on Mars, and I put this on here because of the title, because that sounds very intriguing to me. It says here that a boy living on Mars unexpectedly becomes a dragon rider in this first book in a sci-fi and fantasy mashup. Love some sci-fi, love dragons, so I'm really intrigued by this one. I haven't picked up anything by this author yet, but I have been meaning to read his books for quite a while. He has written quite a few things. I'm interested in this one. Not really much to say about it. The synopsis talks about little green men and flying saucers, but I think that's just kind of a joke. I hope. We also have a contemporary book called Hate Follow, and this one is about an influencer who has a bunch of Instagram followers. I think it says she's got like 1 million or something, and her life looks just about perfect. But this is the bit that caught my eye. It says that her curated existence explodes when her teenage daughter Mia sues her for invasion of privacy, and I love that. I've not heard of a book that tackles that kind of topic, like mummy or parent family vloggers, influencers. I don't really like calling them family influencers, that sounds really wrong. So I think this sounds absolutely incredible. I'm a huge advocate for not putting anything about your children online if you're some sort of influencer, YouTuber. I especially don't think that parents should be creating entire accounts focused on their children. It's obviously very different if you have them like in the background of a vlog or something, but you know, I don't think they need to be the topic of a video, or in this case an Instagram page. So I really want to read this one. I'm actually going to see right this second if it's available on NetGalley, because it does sound like something that I would really enjoy. Now this next one has a very long title, so I'm going to have to read it out, and that is How to Fall in Love in a Time of Unnamable Disaster. This is a very short book. It's only 272 pages and it's coming out towards the end of the month. It says here that it's a debut set against a writhing backdrop of a post-apocalyptic New York City. It talks about acid rainstorms and toxic wastelands. New York City seems to have been divided into different boroughs that are under military control. I really like dystopian post-apocalyptic fiction myself, so I think this sounds really good. And it also says that it's LGBT. This one sounds really promising. I've also put Inheritance of Scars on this list, and this is another fantasy book. I think it's a YA mythology, kind of gothic, because it says that it's belladonna meets Norse mythology, and I love belladonna. It's one of my favourite series. I'm finishing it soon, hopefully. I just need to read the last book, Wisteria, but that's not really the point. So this book, it says that it's a dark fantasy debut, follows a teen who accidentally awakens an imprisoned Draugr, if that's how you pronounce it, and must follow him into a deadly magical forest to rescue her grandmother. And then it talks about like ex-lovers and enemies and things, and it all sounds really good. So I'm looking forward to reading this one. Hopefully I can get my hands on it. A Song to Drown Rivers. This one is kind of fantasy historical romance, I think. It says here that it's inspired by the legend of Qixi, I think is how you pronounce it, one of the famous four beauties of ancient China. It's a historical fantasy about womanhood, war, sacrifice, and love against all odds. I think it's telling the woman's backstory, maybe, and like talking through the legend. So yeah, I'll be interested in reading this one. It's not one that I've heard of before, so that's very intriguing. Air by Sabaa Tahir. This is her first book in her newest series. This is the author of An Ember in the Ashes, which I did read and I enjoyed, but I DNF'd the second book. But I'm hoping that I do enjoy this one. It's another YA fantasy series, and it says that it's about an orphan, an outcast, a prince, and a killer who will bring an empire to its knees. Another book that's talking about bringing an empire to its knees. I like that. It says here that the main character is called Quill, which is always intriguing to me. It makes me laugh. Something about rising above magic and lineage and air stuff. So I'm intrigued by this one. I've only just noticed what the cover is. It's a really cool illustrated cover actually. I really enjoy that. Killer House Party, and I picked this one because the synopsis mentions red solo cups, which if you live outside of the US, you assume that every student drinks from those all the time. I don't think people in sororities have mugs. It says here that it's a YA horror book. The rating is quite low. It's only 3.49, which is quite low for a new release. It says that there's a graduation party at an abandoned mansion, and it turns into a bloody fight for survival. So it's like survival horror, Halloween-y kind of thing. And that is a vibe that I really enjoy reading about, so that's why I put that on this list, not just because of the red solo cups. I'll Be Waiting by Kelly Armstrong. This is a haunted house seance supernatural horror kind of book. I don't know if it's kind of about evil spirits and things, but there's a like Ouija coin token, if that's what you call it, on the cover. It says here that the main character never expected to see adulthood because she was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis as a child. She's lived on into her 30s and has met Anton. Months after they got married, Anton died in a horrible car. I assume that means horrible car accident, but someone's made a typo here. And then it says that Nicola has been hounded by spiritualists promising closure ever since the story went public. So I'm very intrigued by this one. It sounds really creepy, and I know that I do enjoy Kelly Armstrong's writing most of the time, so I've put this one on this list for this reason. Make the Season Bright. This is a Christmas book. Like I said, I think publishers are trying to push out a ton of seasonal stuff so that people will buy them as gifts for the upcoming like gifting season. And this is written by Ashley Herring Blake, who is one of my auto-buy authors. It says that it's about two exes who are stuck in the same house for Christmas, and so I think it's going to be a very humorous, light-hearted Christmas read, and I do want to get my hands on it. Lore Olympus Volume 7 is coming out. I feel like I don't really need to talk loads about this one. This is a graphic novel which you can get for free online, except the website where I used to read it for free is being really annoying. You have to download an app and I don't really want to do that, so I'm now waiting for the physical copies to come out. But I have already read this version online, and it's a retelling of the Greek myth of Hades and Persephone, and a bunch of other gods as well are involved, and we see all of their antics. It's so much fun. Let It Glow. This is another holiday book. This time it's middle grade and it's written by Marissa Mayer, who wrote Cinder and Renegades. So I think this is about two children, almost teenagers maybe, who are both adopted, and they bump into each other one day and they realise they've got a secret twin that they didn't know about. So this sounds really intriguing to me. I love that it's set at Christmas, so I'm really looking forward to reading this one sometime soon. The City in Glass. This is a short novel by Neve Vo. I actually originally put this on the list because the title was similar to The City of Brass, but it does sound like something that I might enjoy. I think this is about angels and demons battling it out, and that sounds very intriguing to me, so that's why it's on the list. The Wild Huntress. This is by Emily Lloyd-Jones, whose books I have really enjoyed in the past. She writes really atmospheric historical fantasy, normally set in Wales and often inspired by Welsh mythology. So it says here that every 5 years, two kingdoms take part in a wild hunt. Joining is a bloody risk, and even the most qualified hunters can suffer the deadliest fates. And the main characters, I assume, are taking part in that, and they have to fight off monsters and things, and I think that sounds really cool. The next one is Model Home by Rivers Solomon. This is a haunted house type novel, which I have really been enjoying recently. I'm hoping actually in October to post a haunted house reading vlog. I'm not guaranteeing anything because my mood reading and work sometimes get in the way, everything clashes, and it's often a disaster. But I'm hoping to do a reading vlog, and maybe this will be featured in the vlog as well. So this is about three siblings who tend to keep their distance from their family home where they grew up. It says when they first moved there, they were the only black family in the neighbourhood. The neighbours acted nice enough, but right away bad things and scary things began to happen in their house. Now they're adults and the siblings have basically left their hometown. They've also left their parents all alone in the house. It says that their parents both pass away, and so the siblings are forced back into their old family home, and they have to figure out the kind of mystery around their parents' death. I think this sounds really, really good. It's set in the American South. I'm expecting it to be very atmospheric, so that's why I put it on this list. I Did Something Bad. This is an adventure kind of rom-com about a journalist and a movie star who team up to cover up a murder of some sort. And I'm sure they fall for each other in the process. Let's have a look. It says here that the journalist is trying to get the scoop on a guy called Tyler, who is Hollywood's hottest movie star, who has just returned home to Myanmar to shoot a film. So does that mean that it's set there as well? I'm not entirely sure. It says that he's very private, and obviously as she's a journalist, she is probably not, and maybe doesn't respect those boundaries. And it says here that they have to work together to figure out who has murdered someone or something. I'm not sure. This sounds really, really good and action-packed. And the reason I'm being quite vague with the synopsis is that I want to be surprised. I feel like this is one that you can go into without really knowing much. The Bletchley Riddle. This is by Ruta Sepetys and a co-author this time called Steve Sheinkin. It's a middle grade historical book. Ruta Sepetys writes really good historical fiction, and I believe this is her first middle grade. It says here that it's set at Bletchley Park, which is a place just north of where I live, and it's where they had the code breaking factory during World War II. So this is kind of set around that, I think, and that sounds really good. I really enjoy Ruta Sepetys' work, so I'll be picking this one up. This Cursed House, and I think this is obviously another haunted house style book. It says here that it's a Southern Gothic horror debut about a young black woman who abandons her life in 1960s Chicago for a position with a mysterious family in New Orleans, only to discover the dark truth. She's desperate to escape her life in Chicago. She discovers that the family that she moves in with isn't what it seems. And then there are secrets that stretch back over a century. I think this sounds really cool, and I do want to get my hands on this one. So again, I'm going to see if this one's on NetGalley as well, because I do want to read it. The Nightmare Before Christmas, and I put this on here because of the title, mainly. This is a holiday romance book where the golden-hearted Prince of Christmas falls for the totally off-limits Prince of Halloween, and I think that sounds really wonderful. So I put that on this list. The Book of Witching. This is by the author of Haunting in the Arctic, which I haven't read yet, but I have borrowed it from the library several times with the intention to read it. I just really haven't been in the mood for it yet. But this does sound really good. They both do. obviously, otherwise I wouldn't keep checking it out from the library. It says here that the main character, Clem, receives a call from the hospital saying that her 19-year-old daughter is unconscious. Her daughter, Erin, was on a hiking trip, which went disastrously wrong. And Erin is obviously now unconscious, as I said, and her boyfriend is dead, and her best friend is missing. It says Erin wakes up and she doesn't recognise her mother. She doesn't answer to her name, but insists she is someone named Nix. I think this sounds really good, really creepy as well. I get really creeped out by like possession and body snatching kind of things, and I think that's what this sounds like. The Blue Hour, this one is by Paula Hawkins, who I've only ever read one book from, as have probably most people, but I do own all of her other books, so I should probably try to read those. This one is set on a Scottish island. It says here that it's only accessible to the mainland for 12 hours a day. Famous artist whose notoriously unfaithful husband disappeared after visiting her 20 years ago. Well, that was the whole sentence. It's trying to give me like catchphrases, I think. It says the island has only one house, one inhabitant, and one way out. And there's a shocking discovery, and it sounds quite creepy, so that's why it's on the list. And I like isolated settings. And Scotland as well. Scotland is great. The Wedding Witch, this is by Erin Sterling, third book in the X-Hex series. I've read the first one, really enjoyed it. I haven't read the second yet, but I do want to soon. These are like witchy romance books. The Night Ward, I mainly put this one on here because of the cover, but also it says that it's the first book in a duology, and it's Caribbean mythology meets The Witcher. So like Caribbean mythology meets Polish mythology, maybe. It says here that it introduces a world where women, warrior magicians rule, and a child princess and her bodyguard must flee an attempted coup and evade the wave of darkness sent to kill her. I think it sounds really good, and again, love the cover, so it's on the list. House of Frank. From the cover of this one, I actually thought it was middle grade, but it turns out it's not. It's actually an adult cozy mystery fantasy romance book. It says here that it's the story of a lonely witch who is consumed by grief and the healing power of found family, and I think this one is probably gonna make me cry, and I also love this cover. Blood Mountain, this is the second in a series that I haven't actually read, but I really like the sound of this one, and I also really enjoy the cover. It says it's set in New Mexico, I think, and it follows a game warden called Jodie who disrupts a murderous wilderness adventure. It says here that Jodie gets some unsettling news that her new friend's brother-in-law is missing. She's eager to help and goes into the wilderness to like investigate and whatever, and she finds a rustic hideaway and a dead body. So it's kind of like an isolated, super creepy, wintry murder mystery, and I love the sound of that. The Great Library of Tomorrow. This is a fantasy book. It says it's about a band of heroes who must defeat a malevolent enemy who is bent on destroying the openness, love and creativity that sustain their many realms. So I don't know if this is like a multiverse kind of thing. It kind of sounds like it. It says that it's perfect for fans of N.K. Jemisin and Brandon Sanderson, so A+. Also really like this cover as well. Publishers are doing so well lately. Bethany Joy Lenz is also bringing out a memoir called Dinner for Vampires: Life on a Cult TV show. This is one of the actresses from One Tree Hill, which is a show that I was obsessed with growing up, but I never actually finished it. I'm really bad with TV shows as well as book series. I always watch many of the first series and then, or seasons, and then just never finish them. So yeah, maybe it's a me problem, as if I didn't know that already. So yeah, this is her memoir. She talks about her time on the show, which sounds really quite traumatic from what I've heard from various podcasts that she's spoken in. And I imagine she also talks about the cult that she was part of as well. So I do really want to read this one, and I'm hoping to get to it maybe in November. The Fury of the Gods. This is the third book in the Bloodsworn saga by John Gwynne. I think this is the final book in the trilogy as well. I don't know what this series is about other than it's Norse inspired. But I've not read the first book yet, and I do really need to because I've got it on my shelf, but I just haven't picked it up yet. And then finally, the last book in this really, really long video that's going to take me ages to edit is For Shia's Wrath. This is a Pakistani fantasy romance book. It says that it's a retelling of The Count of Monte Cristo, which I've not read myself, and I actually don't know what it's about, but I do want to read this anyway. It says that it's about one girl who seeks revenge against those who betrayed her, including the boy that she used to love. She was framed for a crime that she didn't commit. She's counting down her days in prison until she can exact revenge on the guy who was responsible for her downfall, the boy that she once loved. And then it talks about gin and stolen treasure and stuff, and I love that. Everything about this sounds incredible, so I would really, really like to pick it up sometime soon. It's not coming out until the end of the month, so maybe if I save up the pennies I can buy this one, because I don't think it's being released in the UK immediately, and I'm often also not approved for Wednesday books. So I'm not holding up much hope of getting my hands on this one soon, but I would really love to because it sounds so good. But yeah, that was the last one on this list. Thank you for watching. Thank you for putting up with this kind of awkward setup and the fact that I'm still in my trackers. Let me know which books from this list you're most anticipating, or if there are any outside of this list that you've noted down, let me know. I would love to know about more new releases. Thank you for watching, and I'll speak to you all in the next video. Bye!